We finally made it to election number 15, meaning we are a third of the way through to today. Previously, Australia was on the long rocky road to recovery. Prime Minister Joseph Lyons had fought with a rogue premier and a succession movement to successfully win a second term as Prime Minister. However, he had lost seats, resulting in the reforming of the old coalition with the Country Party under L. Page. With the economy mostly recovered, Australia's focus would turn away from domestic policy to international policy. Britain had recently given Australia and other Dominion holdings a greater ability in determining their foreign affairs, and this would be immediately put to the test. In 1931, Japan had taken over the northern region of China, known as Manchuria, and began to undertake aggressive actions against the rest of China. As a pacifist, Lyons did not want another war to break out in the Pacific and would appoint former nationalist leader John Latham to lead a mission around the Pacific to build up relations with the major Pacific powers and hopefully generate a non-aggression pact. This move was also brought about by Australia's desire to trade with many of these powers, especially Japan, who was a large importer of Australian iron. However, Lyons lacked experience in foreign affairs, as he had been a state parliamentarian for most of his political career, and with Japan's eventual full invasion of China and the increasing hostilities in Europe, a Second World War was all but inevitable. Lyons' government would be heavily criticised by former Prime Minister Billy Hughes. Yes, he's still around, this time for their lack of preparation for a war, a move that would see him temporarily kicked from Lyons' cabinet, only to be brought back in and given the external affairs portfolio. Along with this, Australia would triple its defence budget, and Hughes would yet again go on a recruiting spree just like in the First World War. In 1936, recently coronated King Edward VIII of England found himself in a constitutional crisis due to his desire to marry the American Wallis Simpson, a two-time divorcee. As the head of the Church of England, Edward could not marry a woman whose former spouse was still alive. As a result, despite opposition from the British, Australian and other Dominion governments, the king resigned, giving the crown over to his brother, George VI, to become king. As a result, Lyons would be the only Prime Minister to hold office under three different monarchs. The British royal family was not the only group experiencing a succession crisis. The deeply divided Labour Party was looking for a new successor to replace outgoing leader James Scullin. Scullin was determined not to have a supporter of his rival, former Premier Jack Lang, take control of the party. His most likely successor was Deputy Leader Frank Ford, but a new face had emerged in the party to challenge Ford for the role, Western Australian John Curtin. Yes, he's the guy from Civilization VI. Curtin did not expect to win the leadership role. However, Curtin's more left-wing economic views gained him support with unions and critics of Scullin. Curtin would end up winning the position with a single vote. However, Curtin would be forced to give up his heavy drinking habits to take on the role. Due to his more left-leaning economic stance, Curtin was able to win back the support of Lang's New South Wales Federal Labor members, although Lang himself would remain opposed to the Federal Party. And with that, the election was set for the 23rd of October 1937. And the winner was Joseph Lyons and the coalition with 43 seats, a gain of 1, which was brought about by the unification of the party with the Liberal Country League's 5 members, so in fact they had actually lost 4 seats. Labour had now had 29 seats, a gain of 11, which was also deceiving as 9 of the seats were coming from the Lang Labour members joining back into the party, so in reality they had only gained 2. This is a rather uneventful election in the lower house, which gains and losses on both sides were small. However, Labour had made some large gains in the Senate. The only other big thing of note here was the record support behind the Country Party, which had peaked at 15.55%, the highest it would ever achieve. However, the storm clouds of war growing in Europe and the Pacific, Australia was about to face its largest crisis in its entire history. Come back next time for the election of 1940.